Far off the coast of Key West, Florida, a lone fisherman named Caleb Turner guided his small boat through restless waters. The sun was dropping low, casting shards of gold across the ocean, when a strange flash broke the rhythm of the waves. Something was moving, thrashing, yet the motion was too deliberate to be driftwood, too heavy to be a bird. He squinted into the glare, his pulse quickening with a sense that what he was about to see did not belong here. As he steered closer, the sound of splashing grew sharper, more desperate, like fists pounding the surface of the sea. Then the shape revealed itself. A maneless but unmistakably powerful form, muscles straining, eyes wild above the foam. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. It was a lioness, a creature of land and dust and savanna, fighting for life in a place that could only mean her death. The ocean had no mercy for her. She gasped through gurgling growls, her body jerking between strokes that weakened with every second. Salt water clung to her coat, dragging her down like chains. She was not built for this, and every kick of her legs seemed slower, less coordinated, as if surrender were seconds away. Caleb's instincts screamed, "Back away, keep distance, do not let her claws touch the hull." But another voice, quieter, human, rose above the fear. If he left her, she would sink forever. The boat pitched slightly as he circled nearer, his hands tight on the wheel. He had wrestled storms before, endured sudden squalls and broken lines, but this was an entirely different battle. For one fleeting instant, her amber eyes met his, and the ocean around them seemed to hush. He saw not a predator, but an exhausted soul pleading without words. He gritted his teeth, knowing this was no ordinary choice. It was a line between self-preservation and compassion. The lioness tried once more to lift her head above the waves, a raw, guttural sound spilling from her chest. Foam bubbled around her jaws, her strokes uneven, jerking, slipping. Caleb's fear grew sharper, not just of what she might do if she climbed aboard, but of watching her vanish beneath the waves while he stood idle. His heart hammered, urging him closer, yet his mind painted a dozen violent outcomes if he dared. Wind brushed against his face, sticky with salt, and the rocking of the sea threw him forward, forcing a decision. He killed the engine, letting the boat drift nearer, closer to the unthinkable. His hands trembled as he grabbed for a rope, though the question still clawed at him. Would she see him as savior or as enemy? For 1 second it seemed madness to even try. For the next, it felt impossible to turn away. Then his eyes caught something beneath the waterline, streaks of dark red fanning into the ocean like ink. The lioness was not just drowning, she was bleeding. The lines across her flank were no accident, no wound from nature's hunt. They were sharp, deliberate, and carved in ways only human hands could have left behind. And at that moment, Caleb realized this was no random tragedy of nature. Someone had put her here. Caleb's stomach twisted as the truth sank in. This lioness hadn't wandered here. She had been cast into the ocean like discarded cargo, left to die in the most unnatural prison imaginable. Rage mixed with disbelief, and for a moment his fear burned away. She was pressing her body against the side of his boat now, claws scraping against the hull, her weight threatening to tilt the craft. Yet in her eyes there was no violence, only exhaustion and a silent cry for help. The boat groaned under her impact, swaying dangerously with each swell. Caleb steadied himself, the salt spray stinging his face as he reached for a coil of rope.
His hands moved on instinct, fumbling to knot a makeshift harness. He muttered under his breath, not to calm himself, but to steady his racing heart.
The lioness pawed at the hull, lips curling in what might have been a snarl or a gasp, her strength draining with every second. One wrong slip and she'd vanish beneath the waves. He leaned over, lowering the rope like a lifeline, but the current shoved the boat sideways, nearly carrying it from his grasp. The deck tilted, wood creaking as water slapped against the stern. Caleb fought to keep his balance, his knuckles white, as the lioness lunged weakly at the rope. Her claws snagged, slipped, then clutched again. For an instant, their struggle synchronized. His pull, her desperate heave, and she rose an inch higher from the water's death grip. The effort was brutal. Her soaked body weighed more than the boat could reasonably bear. Caleb dug his boots against the planks, muscles screaming as he hauled with every ounce of strength. The rope cut into his palms, burning lines of pain, but he held on. The lioness's growl turned into a broken cough, salt water pouring from her mouth as she thrashed for breath. The deck shuddered under their combined fight, the sea threatening to tear both of them apart. Just as his arms gave out, Caleb spotted the small emergency ladder lashed to the rail. He scrambled to free it, nearly losing his footing as the boat pitched hard. He shoved it over the side, creating one narrow chance. The lioness, as if understanding, dragged her trembling paws onto the first rung. Her claws scraped metal, her body quivered, but she climbed with raw will. Caleb steadied her flank with the rope, urging her inch by inch, until suddenly she collapsed onto the deck with a heavy, sodden thud. For a moment, neither moved. Caleb dropped beside her, chest heaving, every muscle trembling with fatigue. The lioness lay sprawled across the planks, sides heaving, eyes closed. Water pooled around her, trickling between the boards. He half expected her to leap up and strike, to remind him she was still wild, but she didn't.
She only breathed, shallow and strained, as if life itself had almost abandoned her. The boat rocked gently now, calmer after the storm of their struggle, and Caleb found himself staring at her wounds. Long, deliberate gashes carved across her flank, some fresh, others older, layered like cruel signatures. These weren't the marks of a hunt or accident. They were scars of betrayal, evidence of hands that had once controlled her and then chosen to throw her away. And as Caleb knelt beside her trembling body, it struck him that this creature hadn't only been abandoned to the sea, she had been abandoned by the very people meant to protect her. Night draped itself across the ocean, the horizon swallowed in shadows. Caleb lit a small lantern on deck, its glow trembling over the lioness's battered frame. She lay still, her breaths ragged, each rise of her chest a fragile battle against the silence around them. He fetched a bucket, scooped seawater, then rinsed the blood and salt from her wounds, his hands careful, deliberate. With strips of cloth torn from an old shirt, he pressed against her cuts, whispering softly, as if his words alone could steady her. The air was thick with the scent of brine and iron. Caleb worked with the patience of a man who knew fear could undo everything. At any moment, she could snap, turn on him with the wild instinct of her kind. Yet she didn't. Her golden eyes flickered open once, locking on his face, and instead of rage, there was only resignation, and faintly, something that looked like trust. He paused, the lantern's light painting both of them in the same weary glow. Hours passed. The sea rolled steady, rocking the boat like a cradle.
Caleb sat beside her, offering a small tin of fresh water. To his surprise, the lioness lifted her head weakly and drank, her rough tongue scraping the metal. It was not an act of submission, but survival shared, a fragile bridge between predator and man.
He felt his throat tighten, realizing how thin the thread was that bound their fates together in that moment. Sometime after midnight, she shifted, trying to rise. Caleb placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, but she eased back down, curling slightly as though conserving what strength remained. The stars above shimmered against the black water, endless and cold, but within the circle of lantern light, warmth existed, a fragile covenant carved out of chaos. Caleb stayed awake, watching her chest rise and fall, as if guarding the very breath inside her. When dawn came, it painted the sea in silver and fire. Caleb blinked against the light, exhaustion weighing heavy, and saw the lioness stir. Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself upright. Her legs wobbled on the slick planks, her silhouette framed by the rising sun. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at him, her eyes steady, unblinking. No growl, no lunge, no sign of threat, only a silence that seemed to hold the weight of recognition. Caleb rose too, his palms still stung from rope burns, his clothes stiff with salt. They faced one another in that fragile dawn, two survivors bound by a single night that neither should have endured. His chest tightened, unsure if he should move closer or step back, but the lioness made the choice for him. She dipped her head, not in submission, but in something quieter, almost like acknowledgement, then turned toward the edge of the boat. She hesitated, paws gripping the rail, before leaping back into the sea. But this time, her strokes were strong, sure, aimed at the distant horizon. Caleb watched until the ripples of her body dissolved into the endless expanse, his breath caught between relief and loss. He knew he had not saved her entirely. He had only given her back the chance that others had stolen. And as the sun rose higher, Caleb whispered into the wind, more to himself than to anyone else. Some animals are not only saved, they save us too.